Hi everyone, welcome to Science in a Bag. I'm Miss Regina, coming to you from the Ashland Public Library. Today we're going to talk about parachutes. What are parachutes? Parachutes are things that slow objects down as they come out of the atmosphere into our Earth's crust, as they come down to Earth. As they fall to the ground, there are two forces. One is the gravity pulling it, and then another object is the air force, the air that's forced up. So if I would fall as a ball, it would I'd go really, really fast. But if I spread that area out, it slows down the descent. So what we're going to do today is talk about this air resistance that keeps us, and it slows down that process. It keeps the object up for a while, the parachute up, and it also brings us down slowly. So let's take a look at our bag. What's in our bag? Well, we have that's it. We have some string. Now, I've measured this, but it might not be exact, so we'll talk about that as we use it. We have 2 pipe cleaners. We have a clothespin, but this isn't a clothespin, we're gonna make it into something else. We have a napkin, and we have a plastic bag. Now I'm going to have you take your plastic bag and spread it out. Spread it out flat. Now you have to pull the sides of it, okay, once you get it, because it's kind of all together like this, all right? It's all together, but I'm going to have you reach in there and pull those little side flaps out, okay? Can you see what I'm doing? I'll show you in just a second. We're going to pull those side flaps out. Okay, so it looks like this now. See how I've pulled those out from the sides? This is the canopy part of the parachute. We're going to take and do some modifications for this. Now, when we use this process, we're going to talk about the engineering design process. And the first one is the first question is we have to ask what type of parachute will drop the load gently to the ground. Is it a big one? Is it a small one? Or is it going to drop it slow enough? So depending upon the load, then we have to say, okay, we'll have to do some experimenting. Well, I'm going to imagine what I think would do it. Do you think it would take a big something huge? Like, could I use a wooden board maybe to slow me down? I don't know, what could I use? Well, I'm going to use today we're going to use our plastic bag. But people have used material. Leonardo da Vinci, back in the 1500s, he experimented with a frame. He made a frame and he thought that would work. But he wasn't able to get up in the air. At that time, they didn't know about balloons. But by the 1700s, they were using balloons to lift people from the ground up into the air, because the warm air, hot air, that they would put into this canopy, into the balloon, would lift it up. So there they could drop something and see how it worked. Parachutes are still used today. Parachutes are used for, I know that during wildfires, sometimes areas are engulfed in flames, and then an area maybe inside it or close to it is not, and it's too dangerous to get equipment in there. So they drop the equipment from above. And they can't just drop it. They have to put it on a parachute. They usually put it on a pallet and then put the equipment on it and then put the parachute, attach it to the pallet. They do that with military. When they've dropped tanks, they've dropped trucks. They've dropped all sorts of things into areas where it's very difficult to get to. So the men will get there. Sometimes the men even have to drop into it, parachute in. But then the equipment is followed. And I know NASA uses it when we recover space capsules from space. As they come down, a parachute's deployed. And that will slow down that space capsule until it hits the ground. Now, most of the time, the space capsules don't hit the ground. They go into the water, where it can be recovered and used again, or the things inside of it retrieved. But we need to take a look and see if we can get something that will float this gently to the ground. Then we're going to plan what it will do. So we imagine a couple different kinds. What do I want to use for material? So I don't think I want to use wood. It's pretty heavy. So that's not going to be something I think I want to do. But they ended up using silk. They found that silk was very good for parachutes. We're going to use either a plastic bag, or we might use this napkin that came in our science kit. So we'll talk about that on our second project. But what I want you to do now is spread this out flat, and then we're going to take and cut. I'm going to mark this so you could see. I want a little bit bigger strut here. Okay, so I'm going to mark this. Now you'll see it on your directions from the library, but if you didn't get into the library, it's okay. A lot of this material you have at home, so I'm sure you'll be able to do something with it. Then I'm going to take and I'm going to cut the sides, because if you see here, this really isn't very much. It doesn't get much air into this canopy. So we're going to try and open this up. We're going to make a bigger vent right here on this side. So I'm going to cut this side just a little bit more. I'm going to take out some so that it gets out. So I'm going to take that out. You see how that looks here? Well, I'm going to do the same thing to this other side. Okay? So that will allow a little bit more air to get in there, because we want the air to fill up the parachute. That's the whole idea. We want it to fill up. So I've cut two sections. Now I'm even going to cut in the middle here. I'm going to take and cut a section out. It's like a half of a plate or something like that. So I'm going to take and cut right around here. And then my sides, my struts will be a lot longer than just that little tiny bit for a handle. And I'll be able to get more air into it, okay? So you can see, I've cut out this section, a little bit here, and a little bit here. And it actually gives it a little bit more area to fill up. We want this area in here to fill up. Now, I gave you some pipe cleaners. We're going to take and fold the pipe cleaner in half and put it around one of these sides, one of the handles, and I'm going to just go ahead and take a little bit of it and twist it together so that it won't come apart. So I'm going to twist it that way and then twist it in. Okay, so I put that together. That's pretty tight. And I'll do that same thing to the other side. Twist it together. And away we go. Now, I gave you a weight. You need something for weight. Now, you might, if you don't have a clothespin, you might have a small doll. You might have an action figure that you could use. You don't want it to be real heavy, but you do want some type of weight. So what I did, I took my clothespin and I made it into a paratrooper. I put some hands on him, put a helmet on him, and I made him into a paratrooper, okay? You're able to do that if you choose to, or you could just leave it plain. I'm going to use my paratrooper. Now, you notice I have both of these like this, Okay, I'm going to take and put them together. And then I'm going to take my paratrooper and I'm going to wrap it around. Actually, it works really great to just put it up through his legs, like that. Okay, so I've got my paratrooper ready. Okay, and I've got him there. Now, what all you need to do is take your parachute, hold it here, throw it up into the air, and it will float down. Okay? Did it float gently? Was it gentle enough? Okay, throw it up and let it float down. Now maybe if it's not gentle enough, you might want to make it have a little bit more air. So maybe your next project, maybe you'll want to take out not quite so much here, or you might even take out a little bit more. I took out a little bit more on this one. You can see on this plastic bag the difference. This one I cut up higher right here versus this right here, okay? So I don't know, is that gonna work? So as I'm experimenting, I'm recording my observations. Well, that one came down pretty slowly. Now, the thing of it is, you can't do this outside if it's windy. If it's too windy, you'll have to do it inside. If it's not, you could take this outside to a playground or to the top of maybe you have a fort inside at your back, or you might have a porch that goes out and you could drop it from there down to the ground, see how it goes, okay? So this one, now I have my paratrooper on there, and I'm gonna take it, I'm going to, I think I'll fold this in half so it'll get a little bit more room. I'm going to toss it. I have a pretty high ceiling in here, which is very nice. And I'm going to take it and I put it down. I'm going to toss it up and see. Oh, boy, that one fell really fast. Okay, maybe you need more instead of less for the canopy. So maybe this one that has more in there, that might be really good. So why don't you try and see? And you can plan as you create your parachute, and after that you can see, evaluate it, and improve on it. I wonder what I could do. Maybe I could make it. Maybe I'll try a different canopy instead of a plastic bag. Let's try a napkin. Well, I am going to go ahead and take my napkin, and now I'll need my cord or my yarn. And I'm going to put a piece of yarn at each corner. Now, you could tie it at each corner. For speed's sake, I'm going to go ahead and use a piece of tape and just tape the corners. Okay, so I'm going to tape that one down. And if you use tape, be sure to rub it really hard so that tape stays there, okay? And number 2, corner number 2, corner number 3, and corner number 4 then. Corner number 3, there we go, and then corner number 4. And you notice I'm bringing them into the center because that's where I'm going to put my load. Okay. All right, here we go. Now, I don't know, this canopy may be a little bit bigger. It's maybe a little heavier. I don't know. But it seems, and then you have to think about, are the strings the same size? Well, I'm going to check on that. I did cut most of them to the right size, and I hope that they stayed that way. I don't know why they wouldn't, but I hope that they would be there. And let's see. Now, I lined them up here so that they're all lined up right against there. And I lost one corner. Let me put that back down here. And I'm really, really pushing on these corners so they stay. Okay? And then I'm going to tie a knot. I'm going to put those together and just tie a little knot so that they do stay together. And I'm going to use my paratrooper again. So I'm going to take and put him in there. I'm going to put all of those strings right in the clothespin part at the bottom. Okay, put those together. And then I'm going to tie it. I'm not going to tie it in a knot. I'll tie it like that. Now, I'm going to hold it by the top, okay? I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to see if it'll float down. Okay, let me see if I can get it to float. Ooh, that did float. I think if I weren't at the table, I might get a little bit better result. Let me try that again. Up and down. Ooh, it did. It was floating. Now, if I also did one a little bit earlier where I tied the sides. Okay, so here I have a napkin that I tied the corners of it. And I did put a knot in each one of those. And now I'm going to take those 4, and I'm going to put my paratrooper right on there and bring it down close to the knot. Okay, I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to see if I can toss it up and have it, float down, and it did. I think with that we need to be a little bit higher up, because that'll give it a better one. You could also take your pieces and put them inside of a little cup. Now, I'm going to tape these into the cup, and I'm going to tape one on each of the corners. I'm going to go, it's like going north, south, east, and west. North, and then let me go south here. Okay, let me put it opposite this one, would be this. And opposite this one would be this. Okay. Now, if you didn't want to use your napkin, or if you don't happen to have a napkin, maybe you know someone that has a newspaper. You can take, now I would square this off, and I have squared this off. It looks like a nice big piece. All I do is you take the one corner and you bring it down right opposite, and there's my nice. And this one's quite larger than the napkin, as you can see. You can see that the newspaper is much larger than the napkin. So maybe that would work better. Now, this adds a little bit more weight, so I don't know. We could put our paratrooper in there and see how he does. Okay? And as I toss it up, that one's not good. You'll have to go, I think, with these. I tried them before, and I tried them from the second story, and the library has a perfect spot up on the second floor. It floated down to the floor below. So it was great. So what did we learn? Well, there's there's gravity pulling the parachute down and the man inside of it. And then there's another force called air resistance that's pushing it up and filling the canopy. Now, it doesn't stop it. It's not going to stop in midair. But what it does, it slows the descent down. So I hope that you'll enjoy experimenting with your paratrooper and your parachute. Good luck, and be sure, if you want to take a picture and post it on our Facebook page. I hope to hear from you. Thanks for enjoying this. Bye.